I want to make one more little point about the labor discussion, because Andy Jassy, the CEO of Amazon, dropped a public memo yesterday. And the key quote, which I just pulled off. Yeah, I was thinking like, Jason, it's almost like you're getting the inside scoop.
Yeah.
This is what he said about Amazon and their deployment of generative AI products. He says, as we roll out more Gen AI and agents, it should change the way our work is done. We will need fewer people doing some of the jobs that are being done today and more people doing other types of jobs. It's hard to know exactly where this nets out over time, but in the next few years, we expect that this will reduce our total corporate workforce as we get efficiency gains from using AI extensively across the company. That to me is so, yes, true. I mean, we talk a lot about productivity improvements, and when you have more productive individual units, you need fewer of those units. So that to me is the non-doomer take, though, because the doomer take is white-collar work's going to evaporate overnight. That's not going to happen.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by Squarespace. Turn your idea into a new website. Go to squarespace.com/twist for a free trial. When you're ready to launch, use offer code TWIST to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Inbound. Connect with visionary leaders like Dario Amodei and Amy Poehler at Inbound 2025, September 3rd through 5th in San Francisco, the epicenter of tech innovation, and transform your business strategy for the AI era. Use code TWIST10 for 10% off your general admission ticket at inbound.com/register. Valid through July 31st. And Northwest Registered Agent. Starting your business should be simple. With Northwest Registered Agent, you can form your entire business identity in just 10 clicks and 10 minutes. From LLCs to trademarks, domains to custom websites, they've got you covered. Get more privacy, more options, and more done. Visit northwestregisteredagent.com/twist today.
All right, everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. It's your boy, J. Cal, Alex Wilhelm here as well. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm doing fantastically well. I'm caffeinated. I had a shirt to wear. I'm feeling great, man. But you're still on the road somehow.
I'm on the road. You can tell when I'm running out of. You can tell when I'm on the road. I'm running out of shirts. You know, I've got to do a second laundry run.
Oh yeah.
On this thing, and I got a little bit of a thing. I get really upset about paying for the hotel to do my laundry. It's a per piece item. It's $20 for a t-shirt. It's $12 for a pair of underwear. It's $6 for a pair of socks. I'm like, you could buy a t-shirt for $20. It makes me a little mental. And so
yes.
I like staying at Airbnb houses. So I'm going to be at an Airbnb in LA we're having a little party for the launch of the All In Tequila on Saturday.
Yeah.
But I'm not supposed to, I don't think I'm supposed to actually like broadcast that too widely. So I didn't tweet it or anything, but yeah, still on the road. And I'm at this conference, which I think I could say is the COTU, COTU, that big firm.
Yeah.
It's their conference, East meets West, 150 people. A lot of interesting discussions going on. I did a little all out panel. It was me, Sachs, Brad Gerstner, and Philippe, the co-founder of COTU. And we had a big debate about immigration and AI and job disruption. And I kind of gave my little, I don't want to say stump speech, but I gave my position of why a lifelong optimist is now Doomerist curious.
Okay.
I'm kind of find myself like a hanging out with the Doomerists and chilling with them, because I was talking to the guy from Zipline, which has that incredible drones. They started with fixed wing, but you remember Zipline, and I think they're in the Twist 500. Are tracking up 500 most important private companies, twist500.com. Long story short, he's really doing a lot. I don't want to give any numbers, but I had a meeting with him yesterday. He's doing a lot of deliveries. And, they have Walmart. He's got a bunch of other similar customers, and DoorDash is doing their own drone delivery internally. And so, Zipline is... no, I don't think that's it. Is that Zipline? Oh, yeah. So
the video loops around and you can see the little box come
there
down.
It is, sure.
Yeah.
So for those of you watching, the way it works is it stays 300 meters in the air, or 100 meters in the air, 300 feet in the air. And there's a little cargo that zips down on a tether, releases your stuff in your backyard, and then goes away. So the drone is so high and quiet, which makes it quiet. So if you have a backyard, it drops it. But the pickup is really the interesting thing. So those little boxes are, easily filled by somebody at a cafe or a sandwich shop, pick your poison. And they're doing a lot of, 8-pound deliveries. And these things come in minutes, sub 15-minute time delivery. So it's going to really change it.
Back to AI and how this is making you Doomer adjacent, because I'm really curious.
So automatic delivery is a big one. And Andy Jassy spoke here. And I got to ask him 2 questions. And I asked him about return to work. And the kerfluffle, remember, was all this kerfluffle. And he said, it's actually turned out to be not that dramatic, because the people who we knew going into it, we would lose people who we didn't mind losing that weren't essential. And we lose people who we loved working with, but we decided we wanted to have a certain culture, and it's turned out the culture's back at the company. And so we love it. So that was my second question. My first one was, hey, job destruction, disruption, and retirement. You've seen the figure robot sorting things. You have tons of robots in your factory, self-driving, you're doing Zooks. It seems to me that when a lot of those jobs go away, and obviously you're not hiring a lot of people, you have less people at Amazon than you did a couple of years ago. So it's happening in white collar. And he was basically very upfront and candid that he did think there was going to be a lot less people working at companies, and that it was something society would have to navigate.
Yeah.
And that is the tension. And, when you say that to a room full of investors, and I just said, I think we have some responsibility. I don't buy into like technology is just going to technology and let the chips fall where they may. I think we actually should think about it. I know it's a bummer, but we should think that, hey, some jobs will be disrupted. Now, is it our responsibility to create all the new jobs in the world? No. Of course not. But I think we should just be thinking it as human beings on planet Earth, because there could be some disruptions, and we have safety nets. And the safety net used to be being a DoorDasher or an Uber driver or working at Starbucks. And, now the safety net that we created, like I think gig economy work is the great safety net. We might be looking back. Remember all that hand wringing in the press and all the union leaders? Oh my God, the gig work is terrible. You got to work a shift. You got to come in at 6 a.m., work till, 4 p.m., whatever it is. It turns out like we're going to look back and be like, wow, that gig work was like peak. You could pick who you wanted to work for. You could work for 3 different people. They were all competing with each other for your work. If you didn't like working for one of the customer, someone, you can go to the next. So long story short, we're going to have job destruction. Everybody agrees on that. The only thing people don't agree on is the timeline. And if we can create new jobs in that time period. And then Philippe had something, I think it was Philippe who just said something really interesting about like people have to also be motivated to start jobs, to create jobs. And that's going to be very interesting, I think. Very interesting moment in time where, a group of 5-10 people, like when you graduated from college, or I did. When I graduated, there weren't a lot of jobs. In 94, 92, 93, we're coming out of like a recession and everything. Some people didn't get jobs. They just stayed at home. I think that might be a trend that we're going to see. Young people without jobs.
Yeah, so that means we're looking at job destruction now from 2 different perspectives, because we talked a lot on the show, Jason, about our concern that AI is going to automate early career positions in law and programming and other kind of like knowledge-heavy industries. But now if we take away the gig economy safety net as well, I mean, that does really give people right out of college or just right out of high school, frankly, a pretty limited set of gigs. That's worrying. Well,
and it's happening to white collar too. So, we've seen in big tech that they're like, yeah, we're not going to hire young people because we don't want to have to train them. And the time it takes to train a young person versus the time it takes to automate some amount of work at your job just might be easy to automate it. So I think this is the tension that's going to become very real in the next, 5 years, over the next 5 years. And so anyway, don't have solutions, but that means there's a job. That means there's an opportunity. If there is cognitive surplus, white collar, and there's physical surplus, people doing things in the real world, moving atoms, moving bits. If you had a surplus of young people, what could you do with them? That would be accretive. I don't know. All right, founders, let's talk about your website. I know, disgraziad, you're ashamed of your website. I know. Well, It's time to clean it up. Give your brand a quick refresh with Squarespace. That's the all-in-one platform that makes building a stunning, professional, gorgeous website ridiculously easy. Doesn't matter if you're selling products, doesn't matter if you're offering services, or, if you're just showcasing your portfolio. Squarespace gives you everything you need to grow. They've got this great new AI product. It's called Blueprint. You got to try it. You just answer a few questions and you get a fully customized website in minutes. Personalized layouts, on-brand visuals, and voila, you're done. I've been using this product for over a decade. Check out squarespace.com/twist for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/twist to get 10% off your first website or domain purchase. Once again, squarespace.com/twist.
I mean, I have a lot of ideas, but they're not very good capitalism. But we could use a lot more cool trails through the national parks and forests. We could use a lot more painters. I don't know. But nothing that's like plus GDP immediately comes to mind. Maybe
we just say teachers work 4 days a week. They get the 5th day to do professional development or recover from teaching. And I'm starting to sound like a socialist, but you just increase the number of teachers 20%. So maybe like if every teacher took off Friday, and just back of the envelope math to make it easy for people to understand my point here. If every teacher took off Friday and had a professional development day, right? To research stuff, whatever, or maybe do one-on-one tutoring, then you need theoretically 20% more tutoring. So you hire, a science person who rotates and takes the kids, 20% of the kids each day, or maybe you just take class sizes from 30 on average and make them 15.
Yep. There are 3.8 million public school teachers in the K through 12 system today. So if we can make that 5 million and get class sizes down, that'd be tremendous. I want to make one more little point about the labor discussion, because Andy Jassy, the CEO of Amazon, dropped a public memo yesterday. And the key quote, which I just pulled off. Yeah, I was thinking like, Jason, it's almost like you're getting the inside scoop.
Yeah.
This is what he said about Amazon and their deployment of generative AI products. He says, as we roll out more Gen AI and agents, it should change the way our work is done. We will need fewer people doing some of the jobs that are being done today and more people doing other types of jobs. It's hard to know exactly where this nets out over time, but in the next few years, we expect that this will reduce our total corporate workforce as we get efficiency gains from using AI extensively across the company. That to me is so, yes, true. I mean, we talk a lot about productivity improvements, and when you have more productive individual units, you need fewer of those units. So that to me is the non-doomer take, though, because the doomer take is white collar work's going to evaporate overnight. That's not going to happen.
No, it's, you're going to need less people because people will do more. That's the upside. That's what could save the entire economy. The idea that we've had so much disruption geopolitically, tariffs, the Israel bombing Iran, that conflict, all this type of chaos we're seeing, immigration, whatever, changing in the United States here. Everybody knows my feelings on that. And the stock market continues to rise. So, putting aside the Freedom Day or whatever that, shock and bore wound up being, shocking, 150% tariffs, then bore. We just want reciprocal. That's the standard playbook for negotiations with Trump. Shock and bore. It's like crazy shocking. And then it's like, okay, this is kind of boring. We can just not pay attention to it. It's not going to be impactful in a major way. Like, it's not going to be disruptive. It could be impactful, but not disruptive. I think would be the fair way to say it. Yet here we are. Stock market keeps climbing. And the Fed's not cutting rates. So they kind of have they have a perspective too. Yeah. So their perspective is economy's good.
Economy's good. I checked the data this morning. According to Fed Watch, no one's pricing in rate cuts until September, at which point investors are a little split between a 25 or a 50 BIP cut, which is 0.25 or 0.5%. But yeah, it's going to be static for a while. I just find it very surreal, to your point, that my family's net worth is probably at an all-time high. And yet when I read the news, it's like, the world burns down again. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess.
So weird, yeah.
Split screen.
Here's a poly market, Fed rate decisions. Yeah, so July 30th, September 17th. Am I on the right thing here? Let's see. Fed decisions, Fed rates. Yeah, so...
Here, let me... I have a better screen for that.
Sure, I got it. Yeah. So 55% chance, no change in September. And everything else is 41%, 25 bips. So we're
Hold on.
basically now down to 50-50 on the
Stop
rate
screen
cut.
sharing. I want to show you something funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Thanks to our friends at Polymarket.
I had prepared a different Polymarket for today, but we're doing this early, so this is totally fine. So I just pulled up the same page, and look at what they've put. They actually literally have the live stream from the Fed Open Markets Committee on the page.
Nice.
I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of working back from, you and I were talking about how journalism is changing. And I jumped off the journalism boat a little earlier. You're still like half journalist, and half entrepreneur now. I think like this is part of the future of journalism, which is starting with every placing a bet and saying, here's my skin in the game.
Yeah.
And then, placing, literally putting skin in the game and then working backwards to the discussion. And so if you think about that versus traditional journalism, and again, I'm not here to beat up journalism, the world evolves. When you see people talking about sports now, they're talking about their wager on the sports on ESPN and giving their position, having a bet, and then they watch the game. And then during the game, they're talking about maybe changing their wagers or how the odds have changed. So if you just think about what are consumers wanting from media, I think they want, despite all the fake news and, all the, everybody's terrible at this job or whatever, there's a group of people who are saying, hey, we're going to make some hard decisions, put skin in the game, and we have a more interesting way of getting you the news. Podcast is one of that group. That's why I'm always trying to make this podcast better. When we cover companies, Alex emails them.
It's true.
Emails the CEO and says, hey, we're covering you today. Here's 2 questions. And that's why we get inside information, because we literally just do this old school thing of doing that. But we also talk about bets, and we make bets on this program, although we have to do better at following up on those bets. I need all the sunny bets looked up, editorial director Lon, and so we can maybe settle some of those.
Okay.
Anyway, your thoughts? You had something you wanted to show?
Got some notes. No, I'm enjoying the discussion of how things are changing in regards to journalism, because one thing I'm still wrapping my head around is simply the power of industry insiders who are conflicted to have an enormous media position discussing not just their industry, but the industry at large. And that is so antithetical to the way things were done in the 80s, just to roll the clock back far enough to be uncontroversial, that I don't think we fully digested what that means for truth telling. But I do agree that it is incredibly popular, impactful, and people do find it useful. So I think we are going to see more hybrid stuff. Speaking of which, did you see that?
Just to build on that position, good position. Used to be, if you wanted to tell your story, you were Andy Jassy, you were Jeff Bezos, you had to go to the New York Times or Wall Street Journal, give them the story. Mm-hmm. They interpreted what you said, and then they put it out there. And in the best case, you felt like, okay, yeah, that was fair and balanced. In the worst case, you felt like they spun it and had a position they were going for, and it depended on the publication, depended on the journalist. And over time, people felt like maybe it wasn't balls and strikes, so they went direct. So now you have direct podcasts with the principles on it. And, like if you watch All In, and the 4 of us are talking, we're talking our book by default. The audience understands that. If you look at like the back channel, they're like, okay, David Sachs works for the administration. So he's going to be in solidarity with them. That's how it works. Chamath has these investments. Jason has this investments. Freeberg Samana Science has this, Ohalo company. And so I think the audience is saying, I understand the conflicts. I'm willing net to take that. I think ultimately where it winds up is a hybrid. I think it's a hybrid,
I agree. But if you think back to when blogs were new, like literally back when weblogs were still called that.
Yeah.
I remember when a company would open a blog, people were like, what, they're just going to like post on it and write things? Yeah. Well, today I, for my newsletter and for the show, pulled up the About Amazon webpage to read the memo from Andy Jassy directly. I did not need an intermediary. And that's kind of the gist of what we're talking about.
Well, and that's probably because he doesn't want to be interpreted. He wants to be taken at his word because he feels this is super important. So that's actually a really important insight. And I asked Steve Jobs, why don't they blog at Apple? It's like a famous clip from the D conference. The Wall Street Journal had a conference called D back in the day with Walt Mossberg and Kara Swisher. And I was but a 30-year-old, running Weblogs Inc., I think at the time. And I asked him, like, why don't you blog? And so it takes too much time. And then people are going to say stuff and it might not be in sync. So yeah, it's not for us. But now you see people going direct. And now you start to see podcasts. I saw the Carlson brothers the Stripe, speaking of startups, Stripe launched their own conversations. I think Connor Perkins just launched a blog. I'm like, my God, how many blogs are there? Like, does anybody gonna get any work done in this industry? Pretty crazy.
You know, here at This Week in Startups, we try to keep founders just up to speed on all these trends in AI and marketing, but we can't do it alone. But you're also going to need to connect in person with your colleagues and partners and innovators. There's no substitute for in person. So if you want to connect with visionary leaders and personalities like Dario Amodi, Victor Riparbelli, Dharmesh Shah, my friend, and more, your chance is to do that at Inbound 2025. That's right, the epicenter of tech innovation that will help you transform your strategy as we approach the AI era. It's happening this year from September 3rd to 5th in my old hometown of San Francisco, California. It's a rare chance to really immerse yourself in San Francisco's unique venture ecosystem where new companies can quickly evolve into billion-dollar unicorns and beyond. Use the code TWIST10 at checkout to get 10% off your GA ticket at inbound.com/register. Inbound.com/register. That's inbound.com/register.
Okay, well, if we're gonna do that, here's a website for you, Jason. Here's this from OpenAI, introducing the OpenAI podcast from 3 hours ago. So yes, everyone is now doing this. I think probably because Sam Altman just wants to be able to kind of like not answer the same 3 questions 10,000 times. But I think it's going to become the norm. The question is, what's the first company with its own podcast, media publication, stable coin?
Yeah.
Eventually
meme
sovereign,
coin, everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see who keeps publishing. That was always the interesting thing. People underestimate the amount of work that it takes. And here we are, 2,000 episodes into This Week in Startups, 3 days a week. And I'm a machine about it. You know that. You work with me. So I think a lot of people will just give up because it is arduous to put on a performance, every day or every other day. I do 4 days a week. You do 3. Like it's not easy. It's not easy to have that kind of consistency as a player. So, all right, what's in the news? Let's get back to the news now. Here we go.
All right. I want to talk about a couple of Twist 500 companies that are in the news. First up, Pano AI is a company that I added because I thought the bet that we could use AI to detect wildfires was a pretty good one. And what they do, Jason, is they put the cameras on top of like cell phone towers. And then during the day, Pano AI looks for essentially smoke. And at night, it looks for heat. And the idea is, what if we could just better detect and track wildfires much more quickly and easily? I put them on the Twist 500 a little while ago. The latest news is that they have raised a $44 million Series B led by Giant Ventures with participation from both Initialized Capital and Salesforce Ventures. They're selling, Jason, to people that you love, including private ski resorts and landlords. So your 2 favorite things, owning ranches and going skiing. And also, of course, governments and utilities. The key thing here that I'm really excited about is not that they raise money. That's cool, but not really proof of progress. The Journal wrote that they have now reached contracts exceeding $100 million, which I think shows strong early commercial momentum.
Yeah. And you can see it there on the screen if you're watching. It's, very simple. It's, a camera high up and a bunch of software on the cloud. You'd think about how much it costs to deploy this. These cameras are probably, commercial grade, couple of $1,000 cameras. I'm sure they make them pretty rugged because of where they're located. And then a pretty good connection, but 5G exists everywhere. And this is, I think, probably what people are underappreciating about it, because I'm sure people were putting up cameras and looking for smoke previously, but here, if you look, it's showing you like where you have transmission lines and main lines and the wind speed, wind gusts, temperature, humidity, and then what assets you have, right? So when it shows a fire here, it's showing on the screen like, oh, there's a Valley Forge fire. It also has 2 nearby assets, and it's 1.2 million to the closest asset. An asset, I'm assuming here, is something to put out the fire. So we're thinking about jobs, right? To our early part here. This will be a complete closed loop system shortly. I brought up Zipline before, the power of drones. There's literally going to be helicopters or drones that have large water payloads that are going to be able to go out without waking somebody up in the middle of the night. Firefighters not going to be able to need to get their gear on and run out to this fire. They're going to have a drone go. First drone's going to go and get above the fire and just monitor it, right? So now you got a quadcopter. Second drone, quadcopter is going to get out of the way or film from a distance, is going to drop a payload of water or fire retardant on these things. The other thing that's going to happen is this is going to be doing an analysis, and the AI through an algorithm, instead of, showing you your next video in TikTok as you're melting your brain and frying your dopamine sensors, is going to say, these places are where the fires keep happening. And then you say, oh, this place waters and has, better vegetation. There's never a fire there. So over time, they're going to know exactly, or this idiot keeps burning their garbage and sending embers up. The second, third order impact of this kind of a system is going to be incredibly underrated. Incredibly underrated. You're going to catch the arsonists when they know there's fire. Oh, you're just thinking it? Go ahead. Then
yeah. Well, I mean, if you have a combination of a time series bit of information about where fires begin, and you cross that with GPS data from cell phone locations, you're going to be like, well, that started and there were 7 people nearby, and one of those phones has been near the last 3 hotspots. And then we're going to take that person and we're going to 3-point them right into jail. The downside, though, Jason, is that my backup career, which has always been going to sit in a fire watch tower and not talk to humans for 10 years, is apparently now sufficiently antiquated that I will not be able to do that. And that's a real...
There's a really good sitcom or short run series here of the last fire warden. What do they call those fire watchers? What do they do? What's their technical name?
There's
got to be some
great
name for them for this new series coming from Calacanis Studios. The story of the last fire watcher. And they have to shut the thing down, and they're fighting to keep it going. But there's a robot in there with them. There's like an Optimus or a figure robot living with them that they're training to do the job. And their reward for training them is that they lose their job. But then they decide that the robots would be bored and sad being alone. So he decides to stay anyway, and he makes a business doing some other business, running a campground around the fire watch tower. And they tell stories about the old days.
Lon's going to quit and go write that.
No, this is part of Lon being here. Lon is here so that we can do our creative ideas, and we got a secret project we're working on.
I volunteer to do this. By the way, they're called Fire Watchers. So that's a pretty on the nose title.
Fire Watcher. Coming this fall to CBS.
My question is, what about selling to governments? Because back in the day, people said, don't sell to school districts, don't sell to counties. It's too slow, it's too hard, it's too painful. But here we have Pano AI, which does sell to governments, doing quite well. So I'm kind of curious, Jason, when is it a good choice for a startup to sell into hard markets like that?
Yeah, so we're talking specifically about our government, being slow and incompetent and filled with grift and fraud and stupidity and waste. We're not talking about the UAE or Singapore. And if you go around the world and if you show this to people in Singapore pays people working in government $300,000-$500,000 a year. They are the premier employer. If you're a smart person in Singapore, you would first look for a job, not at Goldman Sachs or at Google. Just picking them because it's G's. You pick government. Government over Goldman and Google. That's what you do in Singapore. How do they accomplish that? They have created a sense of pride with working in government and a sense of that's one of the most proud things you do because of Lee Kuan Yew, this incredible leader of Singapore. And when you watch his videos of how he built that country, man, he's like the iron fist. He built that country. But one of the key things is he said the best and brightest work for government. And so, there's people you can sell into. You can go for those governments, and then you can go for people who are just landowners. I heard you mention they were going after ranch owners, et cetera, who have to deal with fires too. And by the way, I was spending time with Rick Caruso, who ran for mayor, lost to Karen Bass.
In LA.
Karen Bass, complete incompetence, disgraziad, the worst leader you could ever have during a crisis, as we saw her like freeze up when they were just asking her questions about what you're going to do when she was on some boondoggle out of the country while the city burned. And I hope he runs again, and I hope they put him in there. But
investors like me are not going to invest in your business unless you're structured properly. So founders, if you're serious about raising money, you need to set up your business the right way. And that starts with a registered agent. Before a venture capitalist can wire you a single dollar, they're going to check if your company is incorporated and it's in good standing and it's compliant. That's where Northwest Registered Agent comes in. For just $39 plus state fees, they're going to handle your paperwork, keep you compliant, and make sure investors see you as a serious business concern that's worth putting money into. In just 10 clicks and 10 minutes, your business is officially investor ready. Thousands of founders trust Northwest, so don't let paperwork cost you your next funding round. Go to northwestregisteredagent.com/twist and get your business investor ready today. For just $39 plus state fees, you can set up your company the right way, fast, private, and compliant. Go to northwestregisteredagent.com/twist today.
you know, he figured out this incredible technique, and he created the Grove. He created this place in Pacific Palisades. And he came up with this incredible technique for combating fire. It's almost as, perhaps arguably more innovative than Panos. It's called water and firefighters. Incredible combination. So
so you have people who use water, right, to put out the fires?
Yeah. So when, this place I'm at, this Rosewood here in the Santa Barbara area, Montecito is gorgeous. When they had fires here, you just, like they knew it was fire season, so they just stationed a couple of water trucks, and then there are private firefighters you can hire.
Yeah.
So they were like, okay, we'll hire some private firefighters. If sparks come, we can put things out, yada, yada. And then they build things to be fire resistant. This is all just planning and will. And so if one government group can't do it, I like that you keep your costs low and you sell into people who are impacted by this. The insurance companies are going to love this as well, because they are losing their ability to provide insurance in certain regions in America. And this would bring it back. So yeah, ski resorts would have an easy time paying for this. And I think this is a solution that's probably, I don't know, $100,000 to install 5 of these cameras around your ski resort, and then maybe they charge 50 or 100,000 a year. Maybe they charge 10K a month for something like that. And so you're looking at going, okay, $120K a year, $1 million over the next 10 years. What do I save on fire insurance?
And
Maybe it pays for itself.
Oh, I could easily see that. Yeah. But just to underscore what Jason's saying about insurance companies having a hard time insuring, this is a data set from NOAA, the government agency, tracking billion-dollar disaster events that are essentially driven by, droughts, wildfires, flooding, et cetera. And Jason, there's a pretty clear upward trajectory to this chart. So as the climate gets a little more unpredictable, a little bit more difficult, we're going to have a lot more problems. Wildfires are in this list, by the way. So I do expect a lot of companies to try to make insurance possible for people. Because if we don't have insurance, Jason, who is going to subsidize sports broadcasts on cable television if it's not Geico and frickin' farmers, right?
Yeah.
Like someone has to pay for sports. So we've got to keep the insurance companies in business.
Yeah. Insurance is critically, and insurance will change. So, this is an interesting thing for us to discuss as we move into AI boom, AI doom. AI boom, AI doom. That's going to be our new segment. Lon, make us a jingle. AI doom or AI boom. Just be like me with a devil on each side, like one person on a side, like it's the end of the world. The other person saying it's going to be like utopia. The AI boom side of this equation is costs go down. Mm-hmm. So if you were to eliminate wildfires as a concept, well, then insurance goes down. If you have a car that can't crash, and you reduce the ability to crash 99%, well, why do you need insurance? Or if your insurance is going to go down 99%. So with technology, we should see massive amounts of money in the economy free up. And insurance is a big, giant waste of money that should go away in many cases or be reduced at least 80, 90%.
Well, you're saying that if you can reduce the underlying risks that make insurance a requirement, then we don't have to have that essentially risk rent on the economy.
I mean, do you have insurance for I don't have ski insurance as an example. I mean, I have health insurance, but I don't have like insurance on my skis, breaking or something. I don't have insurance on like this laptop breaking. Now they upsell me on like, get the insurance on laptop break. I'm like, I replace it every 3 years. The chance of it breaking is very low. They make these things like, remember everybody used to get for their phones insurance for the screen breaking, and then Gorilla Glass, you can literally drop your phone 10 times and it will not break. I mean, don't do that with an old phone. It will break on the first try. And literally, for young folks, with your iPhone, you paid $100 insurance when you bought it and you got one break. And then you go to the store and they would replace it. Now
it was worth it.
It was worth it because it was going to slip out of your hands and you break it. Now, I mean, I kick my phone across concrete all the time. I'm distracted. It's breaking. And I get little chips in it, but I've never broken the glass. When's the last time the glass broke on an iPhone? It hasn't happened to me.
3 phones ago for me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's 3 or 4 phones ago. Right. So it's a perfect example of technology reducing expenses, making things more rugged. And we love that. What's the Reddit I always talk about? Buy it once?
I believe it's buy it once. Yes. The idea of purchasing a high quality thing. Although I will say you have given Pano AI a really great second act, because if they do figure out this wildfire detection system and it works as well as they want, and they get the coverage they hope to have, all they have to do next is just team up with a drone company and launch their own firefighting service. Like, why not? They already have the data.
Yeah. I'm sure there is somebody making drones for firefighting already. So that could be like an API call, or they could just white label it, or they can make it themselves. It's clearly what's going to happen. Yeah.
Buy it for life is the Reddit, by the way. Not buy it once. We were slightly off.
Buy it for life. Yeah. Great subreddit.
One more little news bit, Jason, and then I want to talk about some founder stuff, but really quickly, we've talked about Scale AI and its partial sale to Meta. We also discussed a little bit about how some of its customers might be backing away from it. Well, OpenAI said in the immediate aftermath of that deal that they weren't going to back off, with CFO Sarah Fryer saying, we don't want to ice the ecosystem because acquisitions are going to happen. If we ice each other out, I think we're actually going to slow the pace of innovation. That didn't last. According to reporting today, OpenAI is going to move entirely away from Scale AI, which means I believe that this acqui-hire of Scale's founder and some of its technology is going to pretty much kneecap the company. So I guess there's going to be a lot of talent from Scale AI that's available for other companies to hire, but it does seem a little shocking.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
Okay.
It might be that Zuckerberg is so ambitious that he will keep everybody employed and just make his AI the best one. So I think that's what's going on here. It's almost as if like you bought NVIDIA and then you take all the chips, not making less chips, going to make more chips, but nobody else gets to buy them. So obviously it's impossible to do that with NVIDIA. There's so many of them, but you could imagine with Grok or an inference chip, a smaller, a sub $10 billion chip, somebody might say, yeah, I'll buy Grok for 10 billion and every single chip I'm going to take for myself. And if we have any left over, maybe we'll sell them. So that could be the situation here. And I suspect it is that Zuckerberg is now taking a meta glasses, metaverse approach to AI, which is I've got the most money and chips outside of Apple, maybe, and Google. Therefore, I'm playing for legacy. I'm pushing all my chips in. You can say whatever you want about, what he's done to society and, how he treats customers and the negative impacts of social media, which are vast. And we've talked about here countless times. On a business basis, he is a complete berserker, like in the category of fighters. He will copy everybody's innovation and laugh while doing it and do it better than you because he doesn't have to come up with the original idea. He doesn't have to come up with the 3 ideas that don't work to get to the one original idea. He'll just copy whatever your innovations are so fast that your head will spin. And then he has all that free time, since you spend all the time doing the product discovery and product market fit work, he can just keep polishing your innovation. Then, if there is a possibility that there is a disruptive technology, and he made a mistake. Meta and VR did not disrupt anything about social media. Zero. Had zero impact. None. So he made a colossal mistake and burned $50 billion. It doesn't matter. That would be like me, betting $50,000 or you betting $5,000. It's like, okay, it stings, but Who cares? On to the next, right? You can make another $5,000 bet. I can make another $50,000 bet. He can make another $50 billion bet. He's playing with a different chip stack. The end, And I was playing low stakes poker the last 2 nights. my VPIP was 100%. I played every hand, and I told everybody, I'm playing every hand. I won 3 pots last night. 3-6 off, 8-4 off, King 7 off. In 8-4, I got 2 pair on the turn after everybody was racing into an ace on the thing. The other 2, I hit trips as well. Nobody could ever imagine that somebody would be playing a 3 for for $50 pre-flop or $100 pre-flop. Who plays 3-6? Who plays 8-4? It's just not in the thing. My friend Alan Keating, who I play with, or Stanley Tang from DoorDash, they have adopted this style because they have very big chip stacks. They do that in high stakes poker. When you watch that Triton and stuff like that. So this is an analogy that's important. If you have a big chip stack, you're a founder, and you want to really be disruptive, go all in and play a lot of hands. You're playing a lot of hands, and you're putting max pressure on the industry. I think Facebook's going to do exactly in AI what they did in social media, which is find their WhatsApp, find their Instagram, and go all in. And this might be the first of a couple of acquisitions that are going to happen.
Well, I'll be very curious to see who they buy next as they pursue the Texas Mike pre-flop strategy. And if you don't get the poker references, well, that probably means you're going outside too much and touching way too much grass. So get back to your computer. All right. There was a really interesting story about a startup today. It's called Traversal, and it is building basically an AI agent that does site reliability engineering work, or SRE work. Essentially, it looks at all your systems and helps you ensure that your company's website doesn't go down, your service doesn't go down. It's a good use for AI. And they just came out and they raised $48 million. All this is to say that they were in stealth for a long time. So long they raised their seed and A while in stealth, and only are now coming out to talk to the public about this. I'm really curious about the strategy because I feel like going in stealth is a very 2012 thing. So I'm curious from your perspective today, one, is being in stealth still something startups should consider? And if so, when? Because I was just kind of blown away by this seeming blast from the past.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to have a weird take on this.
Okay.
A weird take on this. Different entrepreneurs have different energies. There are some, I saw Adam from Quora. I've always really respected him, and I've always tried to talk to him because I just think he's cool. But he's incredibly quiet, and he just stealthily operates in the world, and Quora just grows. And then I was really interested in what Quora was doing, and I said, hey, what's going on? You guys doing like X, Y, and Z? I want to say what it was. And he said, that's exactly what we're doing. We're doing X, Y, and Z. I'm like, yeah, I never hear about it. He's like, yeah. No explanation, nothing. It's just, he's quietly moving in the world like an assassin, doing assassin-like things. Some people, that's how they're built. They're not looking to get a bunch of kudos from the world when they, wake up in the morning and they show up for work. Other folks, like these build in public folks, they release a new feature, they get their, daily Stripe report or their Shopify report, and it's public. And, the Buffer app guy was like one of the pioneers of this. He was showing his he made a public version of his Stripe or whatever, and you could actually see his revenue, you could see his churn rate. Now, all the statistics were great, so it was good. And that made his team excited. It created excitement around his startup. People checked it out. It also inspired, I kid you not, there must be 100 startups right now doing cross-posting services, because it's all balkanized in social media, and management, because cross-posting and management, there were a small number of companies that did it, and it cost thousands of dollars. Now it's basically free, close to free, $100 a month, $10 a month, instead of thousands of bucks a month. So yeah, there you go. And it looks like you had a bunch of churn during, when did you have that chart? Is this a yearly chart?
This is all time for them, going back to January of 12. And so it seems like right around COVID,
yeah,
they had a pretty big decline, but they've since, and I knew this, so going in, I kind of knew what the chart was going to say. They're now at, I believe, an all-time ARR high again. Right. But what's cool, Jason, here is they didn't stop sharing it when they were here, right? That's the thing that gives me a lot of belief.
When it went down, they didn't do it. Yeah. So this is a fun thing to watch along. The challenge with this is he has employees. So when an employee says, I need a raise, I got these other job offers, and it's like, you can't cry poverty. He's got to have like a really significant discussion and say, you know what? You're right. You're worth it. Or, you know what? I got two other people here who are, half your price, so I can get 2 for 1, so I'm just going to stick with them. Or, you know what? I automated your job. And, but this reality has always existed. So in some ways, your job becomes pure. You can say to people, you can't obscurify the reality and then make that your tool for doing compensation negotiation. You then have to focus on reality. You're making X, market is X minus 20%. I like working with you. I'm willing to pay the extra 20% because you're awesome at your job. Or, the market is now X minus 50% for your salary, and I'm going to make a change because it's in the best interest of the business. So you and I had this discussion about Microsoft cutting 3% of their employees in a record quarter with record cash in a booming market where their prospects are incredible. Like, what? This is against all Silicon Valley tradition. You always had extra staff. You cherished the people who stayed with you for a long time. You wrote them letters. You celebrated their 10-year, 5-year, 20-year anniversaries. And now it's just like, yeah, we're in it's a different world now, folks. You're going to get cut. It's a sports team world. There's 15 seats. And as Andy Jassy said, like, we're going to have less people doing more. So use AI every day. Best advice. And white collar work is changing, like if you're good on podcasts, that's one thing. But, if you're a developer or a salesperson or customer support, it's just metrics and can we automate your job away?
I think this is why every CEO is like, please learn AI tools now. Because what they're saying is, please don't make yourself the first one that gets cut. But looping back to stealth, some founders are quieter, moving in silence, like G's and lasagna, I think, as Lil Wayne said. And some are more chest poundy. So essentially, then does stealth just come down to, does it fit the founder's operating ethos?
Yes. If you're a founder and it gives you more energy to build in public, go for it. I don't give your entire roadmap. Don't talk about things you haven't done, but it does create momentum and joy. And, with your customer base, they can get more engaged, be in a community. But again, just be aware that everything you're doing, your competitors are copying. And in a world where software can be built pretty fast, if your buffer, like that buffer chart, I wonder if that buffer chart he'd be at 100 million in revenue right now if he didn't inspire 10 competitors. And competitors are it creates downward pressure. People know you have a big business. I'm going to go compete with it. So if you really think you found a really great business, maybe
shut up.
Just collect the money.
Do you remember when Google went public and everyone collectively crapped their pants because they're like, they're making how much money? Now, no one caught Google, but like that was, Eye of Sauron saying, please come here and take our business because we're just printing money. It was crazy.
You want to inspire your customers, your team, build in public, yourself, get stoked. You want to inspire competitors, go stealth. Be careful out there, folks. Both. I've seen both strategies work. I think over time, people maybe zip it and they just do their 2 yearly keynotes and get into a cadence for product releases. That's more like that. But we have some high performers, and I think it puts pressure on them. But that, since every company does go through an ass kicking at some point, and this is what being public is. Being public is, if you're a public company, you are building in public. Yes. It happens to be a quarterly cadence, not a weekly or monthly. So in some ways, those folks are prepared for it. In fact, I think Facebook and Uber, Stripe, some other people started doing releasing quarterly data, even as a private company, or maybe not being as protective of the quarterly data. Like if it leaks, it leaks. Like we're just getting prepared to be out there as a public company. So
if you've raised a Series G, that means, gosh darn, just tell me every quarter what you're doing, even if you don't put it through an SEC filing. We do have an office hours today, Jason, but I want to squeeze in one more thing because TikTok is the popular vertical short form video application. It is the brainchild of ByteDance, a major Chinese private technology company.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of ByteDance. Oh man,
we know it.
Yes. Congress passed a divest or get out law earlier this year. President Trump came into office. He has delayed that not once, not twice, but now 3 times, giving another 90 days on this deal. My understanding, Jason, is that TikTok and its future in the United States has become wrapped up inside of trade negotiations. So it appears to be kind of a political football going back and forth. But I'm curious why this is so top of mind for you.
We very rarely have consensus amongst all politicians on any item. And this is one, other than spending money like drunken sailors. And this was one where they all agreed, like, this is a threat to America. And there were a bunch of people who were saying, like, you're hysterical, it's not a threat. And very clearly is. They've been caught multiple times stealing consumer data, tracking journalists. The reports from inside of it is that, they're slow rolling, the data rules that they've been given. And, the Chinese government essentially owns every company in China, and they have the ability to have a golden share and be on the board. Putting aside why Trump has extended it now 3 days, Jeff Yass making big donations, all of that, you can have all your criticism that this administration and the last were pay to play. If you make a donation, you get what you want. Politics has always, unfortunately, in the U.S. had that, aspect to what we do. And I think it should change, but hey, here we are. I don't know if that's going to change. What's interesting about this is the fact that it's become part of the overall trade deal. What that should tell you is that this is a foreign asset. The fact that China will make this a key part of trade is that it's important to them to spy on us. I am 100% certain, with zero evidence, but just my gut and number of years on the planet, I believe the Chinese government is using that software to read the phones of children of important people, to hack into people's phones, to hack into people's data, to know their location, and to feed that into their version of Palantir. And we are idiots for allowing them to do so. In India, they just banned, like, en masse, a dozen or 24 of these Chinese apps. They were like, yeah, that makes no sense that you can track our citizens at scale.
Yeah, no, get out.
Just no. It's not personal, but reciprocity, we don't have it. So now that this has been put into that, just pause, everybody. If, first principles thinking, why won't the Chinese spin this out and let it go? Why are they holding on to this like it's like they're nukes? Because it's more powerful than nuclear bombs. This is more powerful than nuclear bombs. They could get compromise on Trump, on Nancy Pelosi. They could have hacked AOC's phone. They could have hacked all of their children's and grandchildren's phone and have compromise on them, know their locations. They can know the locations of special forces. And if you're wondering if that's at all possible or in the realm of possibility, the Israelis just did it in Iran, where they were tracking people because of their WhatsApp app. It's an app. WhatsApp is an app. They were tracking, they've hacked those people's phones, and they literally sent drones in to kill them. This is not science fiction. This is the reality of what this technology enables. The Chinese could come in and assassinate 100 people deftly using TikTok data. I am certain.
I recently joined TikTok again because my boss asked me to. But what I'm really curious about.
Jerk. God, Lon.
Oh, I wasn't talking about Lon. What's interesting to me is how much perspectives here have changed. And again, not trying to get political, but the bill in question passed the House by a vote of 360 to 58. It passed the Senate 79-18, which is an enormous majority for the American Congress. And it did seem like the technology industry was somewhat unified on the points that you're taking. Now it feels much more mealy-mouthed, much more, free market. Is the shift just people's political allegiances coming into the White House and therefore them following the leader here? Or is there a counter argument that we should take into account as we consider the next 90-day pause in this ban?
I mean, listen, it's all a Rorschach test now. If Trump's your guy and you voted for him like the majority of the country did, you think this is 4D chess and he's awesome at it. So therefore, part of the deal, he's going to figure it all out. If you are the minority of the country that didn't vote for him, and you don't like him and think he's a dictator and that there's too much grifting going on, yada, yada, you'd think that this is all some way for him to enrich himself personally. And so the truth is probably the people who are major shareholders in TikTok have his ear and they can make very convincing arguments. He wants to do this grand reconciliation with them. I was talking with 3 Last night, I had a conversation with 3 of the top Chinese entrepreneurs in the world.
Mhm.
The top of the top. And we had a discussion about how the United States and China, the people of both these countries really want to work together, and we need to turn it around. So literally at this little conference and, commerce, we have 2 governments that are seemingly always at each other's throats. And somebody said, this is all about Taiwan. As I said, what is this about? It's pretty much about Taiwan, a little bit about the trade stuff and making money from each other. And there are trust issues and whatever. And I said, what's the solution for Taiwan? I kind of like the ambiguity what we had before. Like, Taiwan's an amazing country and these people are amazing and they're a great part of China. It's like, wait, that's 2 different things. Are they a country or are they part of China? It's like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes to which one? Yes,
just dodging bullets here. Yeah.
They're an incredible part of China and they're very proud people and have a great country. The end. That worked so well. And a tolerance for ambiguity is just so important when you're trying to get along with people, right? Not everybody's perfect or fits into your mold. Somebody said, why don't they just give 100-year guarantee like the Hong Kong thing? In 100 years, Taiwan will be part of China. Like, in 100 years, like, maybe that's the best way to avoid World War III. It's just to come up with like a, 100-year timetable, like kick it out. Like, and Hong Kong is part of China now, and Hong Kong is still independent and has its own sovereignty and like 80% of what they do. And okay, it seems to have worked out better than a war for Hong Kong.
All right, Jason, we need to go talk to a founder. It's about time we did that. And today we are going to talk to Rishab Gupta from Actuality. You may know him from the 9th Founder University cohort and the 34th Launch Accelerator group. He is the man behind Actuality. I think it's a really cool company. I was just looking at it earlier today. Welcome to the show.
Good to see you again. And so you went through our Founder University program in the 9th cohort and Launch Accelerator 34, which is going on right now. You're in week 8, 7 or 8?
Yes. Yeah.
So tell everybody in the audience or show us what you're building and why it's important.
Absolutely. So my name is Rishab and I'm co-founder and CEO of Actuality. At Actuality, we are building an RFP response platform specifically for the construction industry. We use AI to automate RFPs essentially. Why it is important, most construction companies have to respond to a bunch of RFPs to bid on projects and get sales, and responding to these RFPs is time consuming and resource intensive, often taking more than 200 hours, $12,000 to respond to just one RFP, and many times they don't respond to more than 50% of eligible RFPs out there. So it's a great idea to streamline that so that they can respond to more RFPs and without increasing headcount. That's the essential idea.
It's an idea that's going to help people do more with less. They're going to be able to respond to more RFPs, which means they're going to get more work. The quality of the RFPs, the quality of the bids will be better. The win rate will be better. And it'll be cheaper. So you've made something better, faster, cheaper.
Yes, absolutely, yes. And the customers are loving it. We started working on this in November of 2024. So since then we have onboarded 6 design partners. One of them started paying us, and they're loving it. They're using it on a regular basis. One cool thing, recently they came back to us and they said their customers told them that this is one of the best response they have seen in many years. Because it was very personalized. What ends up happening is people use templates and they just fill in their data from previous RFPs, but using AI, everything gets very personalized and very for the actual the bid they're responding to.
So hallucinations, making sure you don't overpromise in an RFP or make a mistake. This is critically important. So what is your instruction to your customers in terms of best practices and how, you obviously could just start firing things off and flood people. And some people are doing stuff like this. I get pitched all the time on people who are like, we'll make 1,000 clips with AI from your podcast, we'll put, $10 behind each one. We'll tell you which ones work. We'll get and I'm like, that sounds like spam. And they're like, no. So yeah, maybe. So what is the current state of affairs? How much time do people have to put into polishing them, checking them? And what are your instructions to customers? And then the follow-up to that obviously is, how is that progressing? If it was going to get better, at what pace would it be better, and to the point at which there would be no changes needed or virtually no changes?
Our responses, when we started working on this, initially they were like 80-85% accurate, but over the past 6 months they have got into a point where they're 90-95% accurate. The way we are selling this to our customers is we are saying that it is a co-pilot. It would create the first draft. You have to it's your responsibility to go through it, check each and every item on this, because from liability perspective, we want to shield ourselves, and this is a revenue generating document directly affecting the revenue, so we want to be mindful of that. One of our customers, all of our customers that came back to us and said they're spending approximately 5 to 8 hours every time reviewing the RFPs, and that's a lot. So we want to closing the gap from 85 to 95 was okay, I would say easy, not easy, but but 95 to 100 is going to be difficult, and it is difficult. So my question here, Jason, is I read a article from Paul Graham saying that do things that don't scale. So I was wondering would it be a good idea to probably have from someone from our team at least doing something for them included within the cost for each RFPs for now?
100%. Yeah. Human in the loop is a great idea. The product Grammarly, which I'm addicted to, had a feature early on that they've deprecated where you could write in Grammarly and then you could press a button and have a human editor review it remote. And, this was crowdsourcing or, virtual work, Mechanical Turk back in the day. We had a bunch of different ways of phrasing it. But, a little reinforcement learning or human in the loop here would go a long way, I think. And I think they'd be happy to pay for it. You could make it a feature, not a bug, which is, would you like to pay for a human to review this draft? Or you could just absorb the cost yourself and consider that R&D and have that person, training the AI and saying, you got this wrong. This could have been better. This was good. This is great. And just explaining to them what's good and great. And depending on the sophistication of your customer, you could let them know that you're doing that, not let them know. I wouldn't, if you're raising money and you present this to shareholders, future shareholders, you do have to make sure that you're clear with them what AI does and what humans do it. There was a company, they were, I think, having a bunch of people in India write code in the Copilot. So people thought they had a coding Copilot, and it was actually just really brilliant Indian engineers doing it. Now, okay, points for creativity, but not cool. And
it was
could lead
Builder.ai over in the UK that had 700 engineers that were fake AI and didn't go well in the end.
Yeah. Now, hiring those people to do reinforcement learning, awesome. So, you could, when I did Grammarly, they were explicit about it because people know what a copywriter is. I'm curious, what is a person who responds to RFP called? Is that a specific title in the world?
It's RFP manager or RFP specialist. These are the two titles. Yeah.
Which is the higher title?
Manager, proposal manager is another one, like people call them. So
what is the junior person called?
Specialist.
Okay, perfect.
Proposal specialist.
So specialist. I think, actually, your RFP specialist, your AI RFP specialist, you could present it as, we are going to be the specialist, but you still have to manage it. And then you could hire a manager to be part of the stack. So we have managers available to polish this for you. Would you like that for $200 per unit? Are you charging people per seat, per unit, per Copilot? How are you charging right now? What's the experimentation like?
So we are charging based on per RFP.
Perfect.
I was from this industry. Most platforms charge per seat, but I think charging per RFP is a better way to do that. We can increase. We can say extra $200 will get you human reviewing it. So you would say 8 hours.
Rishab, I'm really curious about the verticality of this product because I did not know about the architecture, engineering, and construction, or AEC sector until I was literally prepping to have you on the show. So my question is, has the technology that you've built to handle RFPs in that particular industry, does it translate to other sectors, or is there a lot of back-end work to get the right data pipelines in place that would make it hard to kind of copy and then paste this into a different vertical?
There are a few companies which are already doing a good job of servicing other industries, but there are not many companies which are doing a good job specifically for the AEC industry. And the reason for that is that the tech stack for the construction folks, AEC folks, is very different from rest of the companies. They don't integrate with softwares like Procore. They don't have the ability to read architecture drawings, all these kind of things. These are the things which we are building and we want to specialize in, and that is why we have chosen this vertical rather than going horizontal to service many industries. The other big difference is the way this whole industry works is many people within the sector, like an architect would form a syndicate with a general contractor to collaborate together to bid on a bigger RFP. So that type of collaboration is not allowed in many of the other tools. So we are building those subcontractor collaboration workflows, which is very unique to us.
Oh, well, that's awesome. So the answer is not particularly copy-pastable, but also there's good alternatives elsewhere, but you're solving a harder problem, and that'll form a nice moat around the company.
Exactly, and that's exactly the idea.
Well, now I know why Jason invested in you. That sounds great. 10 points.
Yeah. So I used to respond to a bunch of RFPs. I've responded to more than 100 RFPs within the AEC sector. And we tried using some of the existing tools, but none of them worked. So that prompted me to work on this.
Got it.
This is going to be a great business. Is there any way I can be more helpful? Anything you're struggling with? Obviously, a lot of firms in your stage or in your accelerator looking to fundraise. I'm sure you're going to crush it in fundraising. And I don't know if we've introduced you to VCs, but I'm curious how the fundraising is going, or if you're considering a fundraise. And then also on that, I'm curious if you have any questions for me or things I can be helpful with.
Yeah, so fundraising is going well. We have already started forming good relationships with a bunch of VCs through your network, Jason. Thank you so much for that. And we are holding off a little bit. We have started building the relationships. There are a couple of customers, couple of design partners who are about to become paid. So once that happens in the next couple of months, that's when we we'll go full throttle and fundraise. That's the idea. On the other side, we are facing a little bit of a dilemma regarding product side of things. So some of our between how to prioritize, I would love some help. How to prioritize between data privacy, building new features, or increasing the accuracy of the responses. This was my question for you, but we already talked about accuracy. But how do I prioritize that?
So your customers care about the proprietariness of what they're doing, and they really want privacy. They bring it up.
Yes, they bring it up. Everyone does it, some more than others. So we are working with a really big multi-billion-dollar company. For example, they do 6,000 RFPs a year. So on a last call, they said, is there a way that we can deploy it on-prem? So yeah.
Okay, so this is, I think, the enterprise version is how most people do this, and it's contact us for pricing for enterprise, and it just is at a different rate. It's a much bigger rate. It's at a 6-figure per year rate. And so you should really explain how much extra work that is. And, you're giving up the reinforcement learning, but we understand that's key. There are people, I now pay because I needed to have security for, as a finance firm, so now we can, for Google Docs, for Slack, we pay for higher versions of this, specifically to have access to APIs, or specifically to have backups of everything or monitoring of everything. If you have the standard Gmail, as an employer, you can't search through all the emails in your organization, but you can I guess change somebody's password and then go individually and search in it. You work at a bank and you need to know if somebody's talking to this person, or there was fraud going on, or somebody did something inappropriate. You have to search all emails for compliance reasons. That's not $8 a person, $50 a year. Now you're at, $300 a year. So look at the pricing. Slack and Google Docs charge for this like super enterprise, and you can probably find that by talking to an LLM about like what is the pricing and what are the features. But those and the way to sort of back into it is look at the compliance industry and finance, because they have the most acute. The government forces them to keep all communications, like, because if you were to make banks, Goldman Sachs, trading desks, they need to have every phone call recorded, every trade recorded, to make sure they didn't like sell somebody something they didn't. And if somebody says, I didn't buy that, when they're on the trading desk and everybody's ordering, they have a recording of it. And they're like, well, I can play back the recording for you. Like all phone calls on the trading desk are recorded, every text, to make sure they're not doing insider trading, all that compliance work. So compliance is a way for you to understand how to charge, because it's very similar to that. And I think it will be analogous in our industry, is people are willing to pay, I'm going to think it's 4 times as much, 3 times as much. I don't know what the multiplier is, but I think it'll be 4 times as much to have that. And then on-prem might be, 10 times as much if you want that privilege of, we're going to run our software in the cloud for you and this thing. Again, as an entrepreneur, you only have so much work you can do. So the version that's cheap, we get the reinforcement learning. The version where we don't get the reinforcement learning, and we don't even see what you're doing, that could be a different price.
Okay, and 10 times more. That I would have never imagined. But thank you for telling me that.
Great job, and I can't wait to see you in person. I'll see you at the graduation, demo days, barbecue, everything. All right, everybody, this has been
Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you so much, Alex.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
This has been another amazing episode of This Week in Startups. Do us a favor, subscribe, rate, comment over at Spotify, iTunes, everything. Just let us know you're watching. He's at Alex on the Twitter, x.com/Alex. I'm x.com/Jason, and we'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups.